The morning began slowly, soft sunlight spilling into the hotel garden, a quiet breakfast. And then it was time to start the ride. The village was just waking up. I rode along the shores of Lake Batur. Through the gaps between the houses, I could catch little glimpses of the water. The sun was out. The skies were blue, and everything felt incredibly peaceful. It was strange to think that this peaceful lake was born from something so violent. Long ago, a massive volcanic eruption shaped this entire landscape, leaving behind a vast caldera, with Lake Batur resting at its heart, and Gunung Batur and Gunung Abang rising around it. I kept riding, past homes filled with colorful flowers, travelers on bicycles, and people out on their morning walks. And above the houses, Gunung Abang towered over everything, its slopes disappearing into a layer of white clouds. Later, I joined the highway, and the road was lined with tall green trees. I was riding along the slopes of Gunung Abang, but the dense forest made it impossible to catch a glimpse of the mountain. The roads soon opened into small Balinese villages, with little temples lining the roadside. The sunlight had disappeared by then. The skies had turned grey, and everything felt strangely quiet. There were hardly any people on the road, just quiet villages, small temples, and the sound of my motorcycle carrying me through the hills. For a while, it felt like I had the entire road to myself. And then, almost as suddenly as it had changed, the weather began to clear. The clouds slowly gave way. The sunlight returned. And soon, I found myself arriving at Besakih Temple. I took the shuttle up to the temple complex, and almost immediately, Gunung Agung appeared in the distance, rising behind the temples. The whole place looked like something from a fairy tale, as if it had somehow stepped out of another time. There was something almost mystical about this place. With the temples beneath the mountain, it was easy to imagine why this has been considered sacred for centuries. I climbed the stone steps towards Penataran Agung, the main temple of the complex, with its famous split gate standing tall ahead. I walked around behind the temple and saw the beautifully layered Miru towers, rising one above the other. I kept walking, taking in the intricate details of the temples, with a friendly temple dog quietly keeping me company. A little further on, I reached Gelab Temple, with its striking dragon staircase. As soon as I began my return, the rain started. As if the surrounding mountains and greenery weren't enough, the rain added another layer of mysticism to this ancient temple complex. I walked through the downpour, past travelers in their sarongs, hurrying to find shelter, while the rain echoed through the temples. And somehow, instead of rushing through it, I found myself slowing down, just absorbing the beauty of Besakih in a completely different mood. Back on the bike, the rain had only become heavier. But my old companion wasn't going anywhere. I kept riding, through the downpour, through the mist, with almost no one else on the road. The rain was hitting me from every direction, and somehow the whole landscape felt different. The air was cooler. The forests looked greener, and everything around me felt freshly washed. With every shower, the road seemed to reveal a different side of Bali. The rain continued, but now the mist began to take over. It would roll across the road, softening everything around me. And sometimes the world ahead would almost disappear. I kept riding through it, with the road quietly winding through the hills. And every now and then, a temple would suddenly appear through the mist, standing quietly beside the road, before fading away behind me. There was something almost mystical about these moments. Riding alone, with the mountains hidden somewhere beyond the clouds, and the rain still falling around me. The road felt almost dreamlike, as if the mist and rains had hidden everything else, leaving just me and the journey. The misty ride continued, and for the next few kilometers, it was just greenery. Dense trees, thick vegetation, and a quiet road winding through it all. There was hardly anything else in sight, just the sound of my motorcycle cutting through the afternoon rain. Then, slowly, small houses began appearing along the road. Most of them seemed quiet. Perhaps on a rainy afternoon like this, people were happier staying indoors, listening to the rain from the warm comfort of home. Along the road, more little temples began to appear, quietly tucked between the houses and the greenery. And after riding through Bali for so long, my eyes were beginning to get used to these little details. The temples, the houses, the flowers, all blending into the landscape as I rode past. Things that had caught my attention earlier were now becoming familiar sights. Little reminders that I was slowly finding my rhythm on these Balinese roads. As I made my way through Tegallalang village, the weather had begun to ease. The skies continued their little dance, grey clouds giving way to patches of blue, and every now and then, a little sunlight breaking through. The village itself felt calm and beautifully kept, with homes, guest houses, and temples lining the road. I kept riding through this changing landscape until around 2 in the afternoon. The scenery opened up, and I finally reached the famous rice terraces of Tegallalang. I walked deeper into the terraces. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear travelers laughing on the swings, but I was completely lost in the beauty of these green fields. The terraces flowing into one another, creating patterns that seemed to stretch endlessly into the landscape. After enjoying my walk, I got back on the bike and continued through the village. The streets were filled with little shops catering to travelers, cafes, tropical dresses, souvenirs, a little touristy perhaps, but still somehow beautiful in its own way. Passing through tall coconut trees, the landscape changed again. Small houses began appearing, tucked between the rice fields, their gardens spilling out towards the road. The road curved gently through all that green, with rice fields stretching between the houses, and the occasional temple quietly watching over the village. It was a cloudy, balmy afternoon, the kind of weather that made the whole countryside feel calm and unhurried. The calm didn't last for long. As I reached the outskirts of Ubud, the traffic began to build, and then I hit my first traffic jam in Bali. At one point, my handlebar brushed against a car. The driver rolled down his window and gave me an intense glare. I could feel it immediately. The atmosphere had changed. The quiet roads were behind me now. I was entering one of Bali's busiest tourist areas. I slowly squeezed my way forward until I finally reached the heart of Ubud. The town had a completely different energy. Colorful shops, restaurants, and tourists filling the streets. The quieter Bali was truly behind me. I decided to stop at the sacred monkey forest. Beautiful sculptures began appearing among the trees, while around me, Western travelers were busy feeding the monkeys. The monkeys looked so different from the ones back home in India. But what really caught my attention was the Temple of Death, honoring Lord Shiva, hidden deep within the forest. All around me was life and movement. Yet at the heart of the forest, the temple felt strangely still. After leaving the monkey forest, I made my way through the narrow streets of Ubud, quiet lanes winding between small shops and houses, until I finally reached my hotel. After resting for a while, I stepped out again in the evening and walked towards Saraswati Temple. It was almost 6. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over Ubud. The fountains danced across the water, while colorful lights slowly brought the temple to life. And as the daylight flooded, the whole temple seemed to grow more dazzling with every passing moment. As I stepped out of the temple, night had settled over Ubud, and the town seemed to come alive in a completely different way. I walked through the vibrant market, surrounded by colors, lights, and people moving in every direction. After the quiet roads and villages I'd been riding through all day, Ubud felt almost overwhelming. I stopped for dinner, taking a moment to slow down and adjust myself to this new pace of the journey.